Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Sam Zabel and the Magic Pen by Dylan Horrocks. And this is a nice little graphic novel. It's published by Fantagraphics. As you can see, once again, Fantagraphics do a very nice job with the production. And if you're not familiar with Dylan Horrocks, he, for years, did that one-man anthology, Pickle. And from Pickle was derived a lot of the artwork and writing that would encompass his first graphic novel, Hicksville. Hicksville's really good stuff. I don't know why I didn't review that, but I guess I'll do it another time. But this is great, too. And before I continue, I should mention this video is brought to you by generous donation from the Chris Cajero Cilla Endowment for Sequential Narrative Studies, and he donated this to the Academy years ago, and he didn't even get a tote bag for it, nor did he get a tax write-off. But this is, as you can see, Dylan Horrocks has this great, very simple style. It's very appealing to me. I love his stuff. Really nice end papers here. This kind of fantasy world. We'll find out that this is Mars later on. Nice little logo there. Nice title page. And it is interesting, the dedication he actually draws out to his father, to some guy named Eric, and to Terry. I think that might be his wife. I like this how he has a quote from William Butler Yeats, "In dreams begins responsibility." But he also has a quote from famous porn star Nina Hartley, "Desire has no morality." So we got chapter 1, Anhedonia. I like all the chapters have this, almost like a splash page, almost like a cover to the chapter. So we're introduced to Sam Zabel. He's a cartoonist. Pretty quickly, pretty soon we'll find out this is basically Dylan Horrocks. He made this fictional persona, but he really barely tries to hide it, the fact that it's really him. Sam Zabel hasn't drawn a comic in years, even though he considers himself a cartoonist. He, like a few artists out there in the comics world, he started as a writer-artist making personal comics, but then he realized that he could get a higher paying gig just writing comics for like the mainstream publishers, which is exactly what Dylan Horrocks did. He wrote like Batgirl for DC for a long time and some Vertigo titles. He finds that now he's in this bad position where he can't draw anymore his own stuff. He has this horrible writer's block. It's almost as if when he tries to draw, he just sees that big blank white paper and he seizes up, And it makes him sad because he remembers just a few years ago when it was all so easy. Words and pictures would tumble out of him right onto the page, and now nothing. We see him working on his kind of sellout hack work comic, Lady Knight, who's this sexy superheroine. His only solace in the day is he likes to go to this website that just posts these high-res images of like beautiful, like pre-Raphaelite paintings. And it does seem like they involve a lot of naked women, a lot of these paintings. These are recreations of famous paintings, not that I knew that. I just read it in the back. But Dylan Horrocks does a pretty nice job recreating these paintings. Maybe this is implying that, it's not just his creative life that is on pause. He's been married for a few years. He has 2 kids. Maybe he's doesn't have a sexual relationship with his wife anymore. And he hears someone say the word anhedonia, which means an absence of pleasure or joy. And he realizes That's what he's got. Reading is, he doesn't even like reading or watching movies anymore. Food tastes stale. Listening to music doesn't even make him happy anymore. And he lives in a state of anhedonia. Chapter 2, Lady Night. Kind of looks like Charles Burns to me. I really like Horrocks in color. These colors are really great. And his style is just so appealing to me. Like, I could read thousands of pages of his stuff. It's very easy on the eyes. And it's just, I don't know, I just love it. Very simple. God, look at that. It's so almost crude, you could say. But I think it works. We see him picking up his kids after school, cooking for him, hanging out with his wife. Seems like he has a pretty nice life, but he's totally in this funk. His wife commiserates with him, says maybe you should see a psychiatrist. He says, I don't see what a psychiatrist can do for me. I got cartoonist block. But basically he's been depressed for like 6 years now. And the reason why, that was the last time he worked on his own stuff, which in this world is called Pickle. He didn't even change the name of his comic, because that's the name of Dylan Horrocks' real-life comic. So it's kind of interesting. He really, I guess, is just saying, guys, I called him Sam Zabel, but this is me. So then it gets even worse, because now even his hack work, writing for the superhero company, even that's hard for him. Even though it's just, all he's got to do is crap out some simple shit. Here we see Lady Night. This is like a page from the comics, and he can't even figure out the dialogue for Lady Night. So he's agonizing over it, and then Lady Night appears before him, and she says, fucking hell, just get on with it already. You got a deadline. In fact, you're a week past your deadline. We got people waiting for you. And he says, hey, I'm trying to put in structure and tension and climax and, underlying themes. And she's like, that's a bunch of crap. These are superhero comics. Just get it done. He says, well, I'd like to think that superhero comics can be better than that. And, look at Frank Miller, Grant Morrison, Alan Moore. And he says, honey, I have to break the news to you, you're no Alan Moore. In fact, you're a terrible writer. Your villains are hackneyed. Your plots are hackneyed. You're not good. So then she says, you got to loosen up and enjoy yourself again. Here, I'll show you. This is crazy. Then she takes off her uniform and basically seduces poor Sam, who's all sweating bullets. She says, fuck me with your words. Make me your fantasy, Sam. He wakes up. Of course, it was a dream. He's got an email from his publisher, and he gets another email inviting him to a conference, Literature in the 21st Century. And I guess the organizers of this conference read his Pickle comics years ago and thought he, had something to add, something to contribute. Chapter 3, Literature in the 21st Century. He goes to that lecture. It's he doesn't do good. He can't even muster up enthusiasm for, writing in his own life, let alone impart a passion for it to other people. So he doesn't do very good. But when he gets outside, this young woman approaches him. Her name's Alice. And she says, that was a great speech. I loved how you talked about the pleasures and dangers of fantasy. And he's like, really? Did I say that? I can't even remember. Turns out that she has a little website. She's a web tuner. And she says, I would love to interview you. I'd love to interview you for my website. They go to a local cafe. She admits that she's really never read anything of his. She says, yeah, I've never read those Lady Night comics. And he mentioned something about how the original Lady Night was better from the 50s. They had these slow, sad stories where nothing much happens. But then, of course, Lady Night progressed and became like a violent vigilante of the night, like a lot of comics out there. She has a comic strip herself. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I get to that, we see the Lady Knight from the 50s. She has a magical starstone, which gives her the ability to see the intricate ordered patterns underlying the whole web of existence. Her powers are vast, but she hardly ever uses them. Mostly just watches as destiny unfolds. So Sam admits that recently he's been having daydreams about being able to escape into an imaginary world, a utopia. She says, oh, that's interesting, because my comic, which is called Wonderland, kind of talks about how it's just nerdy wish fulfillment fantasies. So she shows him a comic that she bought that very same day at a bookstore. It's called The Queen of Venus. And he's never seen it before. It's a New Zealand comic. And Sam kind of knows his shit, He knows he knows New Zealand comics history, but he's never heard of this before. She mentions that there was another comic called The King of Mars that was there at the same bookstore. And he says, where did you say you got this? So he runs right over to the bookstore, finds The King of Mars, gets on the bus to read it, and we see the first page here. So this is written and drawn by Evan Rice, who Sam Zabel's never heard of. It's very like Dan Dare, 1950s British Empire type sci-fi. Very plucky hero who's always saying these cute little sayings. So after he reaches a page or two, Sam sneezes right into the comic, and all of a sudden he's in Mars. He's on Mars. In fact, he's on the very last panel, the same exact panel of this page. Now we see chapter 4, The King of Mars. So this monster pops up, this very silly looking monster, kind of funny, and it starts chasing him. And then all of a sudden we hear zap, and this woman shows up named Miki. She's got this giant sci-fi gun. She's zapped the monster. She says, "Get up. He'll be awake in a second." She's got this weird little backpack. When it looks like a bear. She has a name for it, but I can't remember. Oh, Satchmo. So, and then she shoves the gun into Satchmo's mouth, and it's almost like he eats it. So his mouth is almost like Felix the Cat's magic bag of tricks, She can throw anything in there. She says, "Here, grab onto me. Hold on tight." And she says, "Mickey Boots, go!" And she flies into the sky. Sam is terrified. He's afraid of heights. He mentions that he's a cartoonist. And Mickey says, that'll be interesting. Sam has a flashback to his wife talking about her flying dreams. And because seems to be in a good headspace, so she has those nice flying dreams. Sam says, "Oh yeah, I always crash when I have those flying dreams. It's never a good thing." So now back to the present. She says, "Hey, see that crack in the ground there? The canals of Mars. That's where we're headed." I love these 3 vertical panels here as she descends into the canyons of Mars. So this is kind of like the front end flaps we saw. And it's very interesting how nerdily outlined these are. Like it says, natural crystal formations reflect light from above. Clouds formed by evaporation of canal water. Tunnels carved into canyon walls. Floating iBird. So it's like elaborate fantasy worlds, It's kind of a utopia, though. So they land, and the Martians show up. The Martians know Mickey and seem to like her. But then they say, "Who's this pale, quivering wreck of a man girl you brought to us?" And she says, Oh, there's Sam Zabel. He's a cartoonist. And they instantly fall on their knees and say, all hail Sam, the king of Mars. Mickey says, okay, I'll leave you guys now. Have fun. Takes off. Chapter 5, The Crystal Crown. So they take Sam to the throne. They crown him. And this guy who's kind of like a vizier or a chamberlain, he yells to the crowd, the cartoonist god king has come. They give him all this great food, entertain him. And all these things are just crazy little imaginative, like if you were writing a sci-fi fantasy novel. He really gets into it, Just because he yawns once, the chamberlain says, silence, everyone leave. The king must go to bed now. Takes the king to his bedchamber, sorry, Sam. And waiting for him, he's got a whole harem of these green-skinned women. And they are just in love with him instantly. They're like, the king, he's come at last. And they're like, oh, how beautiful he is. And they just all get around him. And they're like, oh, let's give him a bath. And he's like, but I'm already married. So he's trying to, in his head, he's all feeling guilty because he's married, But he's like, what? But then again, this is a dream, right? This has to be a dream. So it's not really cheating. What you do in your dreams is okay. So he kind of succumbs to their caresses and their kisses. And it turns into a regular bacchanal. I love how he just uses a dot for a lot of these people's eyes, and it looks so good. I gotta learn how to do that. So then he stops. He says, wait, stop. And he basically says, oh, I'm tired. I just need to go to bed. Because he's not feeling right about all this. So they show him to his bed, which accommodates 50, by the way. And he has to kick them out of the room. They want to sleep with him. But then the narrator voice says, why stop them, Sam? Why send them away? Is it loyalty, shyness, moral rectitude, fear? What are you afraid of? Sam doesn't know the answer. Before he falls asleep, he summons that other possible story, the sweet heat of what was meant to be, and he lets his mind wander back 15 or so minutes, and in this memory, he allows himself to give in. And it really gets raunchy here. It's a full-on orgy. And it looks great. I mean, who wouldn't want this? But of course, Sam chickened out. He's too uptight. I like this 2-page spread of just like, it's just a torrent of lust and release. And he goes to bed. Chapter 6, The Sacred Comic. When he wakes up, Mickey's on his bed. And she's reading Lady Night comics for the first time. She's not impressed. She actually thinks they're kind of gross. And Sam says, yeah, I hate that job. She says, I like this one better. And she picks up one of his pickles. So he's trying to figure out how he got there. And he describes how he was reading The King of Mars. And she says, how much did you read? And she pulls a copy out of her bag. Says, here, keep reading. So in the comic, it's different. Even though it's the same situation, the silly monsters chases him. But in the comic, the astronaut, he's a New Zealand astronaut. He basically gets the best of this monster, climbs up on top of him, and forces him to be his steed. And he rides him around until he gets to the canals. He descends into the canals, and then the Martians show up. Because he's not a cartoonist, sorry about that, they tie him up, and they treat him like an enemy. And they throw him into the high dungeon. This one guy, though, one of the Martians says, I believe you. I believe you're from Earth. I'll help you. So when he goes to the window, there's one of those flying eyeballs. And it releases him from his imprisonment, drops him into the harem, but he runs away from the girls too. And then he hooks up with the guy who rescued him. And he says, we're going to go to Venus. We're going to escape Mars. And the way they're going to do it, the Royal Martian Space Fleet. These are space swimmers, the living spaceships of Mars. And I guess once a year, the men of Mars go to Venus and capture a bride for themselves. These untamed beauties of Venus. This is how they've been doing it forever. And kind of barbaric, but that's what they do. So one of the Martian soldiers comes out, says, halt, treachery. They have a fight. This upsets the space swimmer, so it starts jostling around, and they are all knocked unconscious. And the ships head off to Venus. At the end of this comic, we see the creator, Evan Rice, talking to the reader. He says, hello there, I'm Evan Rice. The story continues in my next exciting comics magazine, The Queen of Venus. That's the comic that Alice had. So Sam realizes that Evan Rice created this whole world. And that's who they're really waiting for. The women bow down before Sam because they see him holding that King of Mars comic. And he says, wait, I didn't draw this comic. This guy Evan Rice did. And I'm not him. And they're crestfallen. They'll start crying. And he feels bad. He says, wait, why don't I get Evan Rice to come here? And of course he realizes now that he has the knowledge of how to get inside these comics. All you have to do is breathe on them. He sneezed on one, but you don't have to sneeze. All you have to do is breathe. And so he looks at the panel of Evan Rice, and him and Mickey blow. Chapter 7, The Cartoonist God King. So all of a sudden they pop up in Evan Rice's studio. Of course he's confused. They try to explain it to him. And he says, oh my God, it's true. The pen works. It really works. The magic pen. So Mickey says, yeah, Evan, tell him about the magic pen. So here's Evan's story. This guy totally looks like a Joe Sacco drawing to me. So Evan, as a young boy, met this guy, Joe Curtis, down at the docks. He was an American seaman. He traded some comic books to Evan for some local currency. And he soon tells Evan that he drew those comics. He was a comic artist for 13 years until all the business dried up. To prove it, he shows him his sketchbooks. And all the sketchbooks are full of this like beautiful jungle settings, like just totally sylvan, beautiful settings with this beautiful woman in them. He tells Evan, he says, this sketchbook is my retirement. When I'm ready, I'm going to take a one-way trip to paradise. He's going to blow on the pages and enter that world. So day after day, he finds Joe at the local pub and watches him draw. And he just makes everything perfect. He makes all the details perfect. Sometimes he lets Evan use the pen. Finally, he has to go, and he gifts the pen to Evan. He says, listen, this is no ordinary pen. This is a magic pen. Whatever you draw with this is real. A perfect living world you can enter with a single breath. So be careful what you draw. Make a beautiful world, kid. And that's the last he ever saw him. So he drew the King of Mars, then planned the sequel, The Queen of Venus, and he says, yeah, we really want you to come with us because, your planet, the inhabitants of Mars and Venus need you. They're desperate to see you. He says, yeah, but I haven't finished the second installment. And she says, no, we're from the future. You already drew it. So he says, oh, okay, yeah, why not? So they all jump into the comic together, and Evan is surrounded by his harem, and they rip his clothes off. Sam asks her how come he knows so much about the magic pen and everything. She says, let's just say I read a lot of comic books, and she dumps her bag. So these are all comics drawn with the magic pen. She can go into any one of them. He says, I just want to go home. She says, oh, I can do that. Here, look at this comic. Now look in between the panels, the gutter, focus on it, and breathe. I love this, how it zooms in. I thought that was also clever. Like a way to get back to the real world is the things that are in the panels. That's, stuff that's happening, but the gutter is just like whatever. The void. So he lands in a dumpster. King of Mars is there. There's a copy of it, and he just throws it back in the dumpster. He's tired of this shit. Goes to a hotel. Goes to bed. And he can't get to sleep. All he can think about is that comic. Runs back to the dumpster. It's already gone. I like the scene. He goes into a comic store. Just picks up random comics. And look at this. It's Mr. Natural. If you look closely. And he starts blowing on all the comics. So, of course, the comic store proprietor is like, get the hell out of here, you weirdo. So then he finally gets back to the paper tree, but it's closed. So he looks up Alice Brown's address, that woman Alice. Goes to her house, she's not there. But she left her Queen of Venus right on the table. So he takes it, or he just blows into it. Because he realizes he does want to get back to that world. Excuse me, guys. I got to blow my nose. Sorry. Still sick. I'm so unprofessional. So, I believe we're now on Venus. Oh, first we see a page of the Evan Rice original. That astronaut and the guy who helped him escape land on Venus. And, the girls are all just scared and meek, like, eek, the men of Mars have come. But now we're with Sam. When Sam gets there, the women say, to arms, sister, to arms. Surrender, Martian, or die. And they brandish spears at him. And he's like, what the hell? So they hogtie him, and they take him to their leader. And this is their, beautiful fantasy here. It's the palace tree, rooms and corridors carved into the outer bark, edible frosting flax. It's just this beautiful, great place. And they take him to the queen, and of course it's Alice. And she says, free him. And she explains that, yeah, she wanted to enter this world. She's a cartoonist, so they thought she was a god and made her queen. She's made some changes, though. That whole women rounded up like wild cattle thing, that 7 brides for 7 brothers bullshit, she said, that's got to stop. So she organized some self-defense lessons for the girls. And now they fight back against the Martians. So the Martians have landed, and they're led by the king. So they're all freaked out now. All their confidence has been shattered. They're like, oh, the king's our creator. Sam feels bad because he's the one who installed the king. He brought Evan over from, reality. So he says, I'll talk to these Martians. And Evan comes out and greets Sam like an old friend. So basically Sam just explains to Evan, he's like, when you made these comics, all those, it seemed like a fun thing to have all these these pretty women running around. But it's in real life, that's not sexy. It's violent and horrible, and it's wrong. And Evan's just like, oh, I didn't really think about it. It's just a comic book. It's make believe. And this is an interesting position here. He says you made it real the moment you started drawing with the magic pen. And besides, even a comic book can shape the real world, contributing to the culture, encouraging attitudes and assumptions. I don't know if I agree with that myself. I mean, it definitely can, but I don't know if that should limit what you draw. So Evan seems to be receptive, and it's just like, yeah, I guess you're right. I like this as like the one time where the narrator kind of steps out and he says, here's what I wanted Sam to say. We are morally responsible for our fantasies. But Sam's not sure. Responsible how and to whom? Society, conscience, or the fantasy itself? Kind of interesting questions. Sam tries to imagine what Sally would say, his wife. And she kind of has this academy's answer. He asks her, do you ever feel ashamed of your fantasies? They might be bad or dangerous or wrong. Totally know about that. I mean, I grew up Catholic, so I spent every day of my life thinking that. She says, are you kidding? And then we get back to Mickey shows up. And she shows up, and they're having a nice feast. The Martians and the Venusians. And Alice explains to Mickey. She says, yeah, no battle. We just explained the position to him. And luckily, King Evan agreed. It seems like he's taken a shine to Alice at King Evan. So Alice asks, like, I heard you have like a lot of comics in that bag, so we could go anywhere in there? But then the Venusian women come up to Alice, Queen Alice, and say, actually, we're a bit bored. Don't get us wrong. We don't want to go back to being treated like slaves, but we kind of miss the running and the chasing and all the panting and moaning. So Alice is like, oh, you guys like it a little rough, huh? But one of the girls says, only not too rough, and sometimes they're just mean. So she basically teaches them the notion of consent and role play. She says, listen, everyone, from now on, there's going to be a safe word. And if anybody's doing something that you don't want to be done to you, you're going to use the safe word. And if you hear that safe word, you're going to stop what you're doing. And King Evan backs her up and says, listen to me, my subjects. This is how it's going to be. Everything Alice said. And the safe word shall be Alice. Which is kind of weird having the universal safe word be your name. I don't know if I'd like that. If everyone is out there going, Greg. So they basically say, you guys are fine now. Let's just explore these fantasy worlds through Mickey's comics. So the first one Alice grabs is a pirate one, and they breathe into it. And now we have Chapter 10, The Magic Pen. And I love this She Pirates of the Bloody Rose comic. Sounds like a great comic. So it's this all-female pirate crew. They're in the midst of a battle. This is so great to me. Just the clean, ultra clean art with all this business going on. So Alice gets into the spirit of things pretty quickly. And Sam, unfortunately, though, is thrown in the brig because he's a man. Men aren't supposed to be on the ship. So Alice has kind of joined the crew. Mickey's, they kind of treat her okay because she's a woman. She says, okay, Sam, you want to get out of here? And she pulls another comic out of her backpack. But this is like a illuminated manuscript from like the 13th century. And I think this is he didn't make this up. So they jump into it, this reality. And it's so weird. There's this pig who's fully roasted with a knife in him. He's like, hey, would you like a slice of me? I'm nicely cooked with cloves and cinnamon. There's wine in the riverbed. There's nuns and monks are just having sex, having an orgy. So I guess back in the 1300s, food was so scarce, and also I'm sure pleasure was scarce because the Catholic Church, didn't let anyone have any fun. So this was like their ultimate fantasy, a world where food was plentiful and you could do whatever you wanted. Sam doesn't like this reality. I like how Alice says, it's like a Jesse Franco movie up in here. So she opens up this other thing, kind of a picture book from 1815. And this is another ribald kind of a comic. I don't know if comic's the right word, but some kind of sequential narrative, I guess. So once again, Sam doesn't feel comfortable. They go to this kind of Wind in the Willows world. Sam likes it because it's very just calm and quiet. Alice finds it boring. And so I guess this comic was on a postcard. It was just a little comic drawn on a postcard. And they find a German helmet, a World War I helmet. And it turns out that this postcard was sent by a father to his son who was a soldier on the front lines. And the father's saying, oh, you remember the Enchanted Forest, those cartoons I used to draw for you with the badger and the bear? You really love those stories. If you ever feel afraid on the front lines, just blow on this picture. And I guess his whole unit, this kid, Max, his entire unit was reported missing in action. When his father heard the news, he wept with joy. So I guess his whole troop blew on the picture to escape the hell of the trenches. So now we see them popping up through various worlds. Cowboy, beach blanket, bingo type movie, King Arthurian fantasy, Japanese giant mecha, some punk rock club in the 70s, and some post-apocalyptic scene from like 12 Monkeys or something, or whatever that movie was called, I Am Legend. So I guess the pen's been around for a long time. Nobody really knows its origin, but whatever's drawn with it has this power. So this is now they're in some hippie comic, probably some underground. Once again, Sam's not having too much fun. Sam was just a real downer. Now they're in a superhero comic. Sam doesn't like that either. He's sick of comics, superhero comics. I like how one of the superheroes just drenches Sam in like gallons of this white fluid. And Alice shakes her fist and says, what kind of sick superpower you call that anyway? Go see a doctor, you weirdo. Chiz man or something. So then Alice is asking questions to Mickey, and she opens up her bag and says, hey, you're in this one. And Mickey says, don't do it, Alice, no. And she blows in the comic. And Mickey says, we got to follow her in there. It's a manga. And now we see chapter 11, The Dreamers. So they're in a high school, and when they open the auditorium door, look at this, the whole auditorium is full of these like writhing snakes. But Mickey calls them the Dreamers. He says, oh my God, this isn't a high school manga, it's horror. She says, worse, it's hentai. So on the stage is this guy named Akio, and he has the magic pen wielded as a weapon. He's holding it right to Alice's throat. And Sam asks, who is this guy, Mickey? What's going on here? And Mickey tells her story now, Mickey's story. Mickey was a schoolgirl genius with an IQ of 210 and a knack for inventing. She had this great life. Here's Satchmo winning the second prize in the science fair. Self-aware, trans-dimensional, chibi mobile backpack. And then one morning she wakes up. She hears a voice. This dream is not yours. You are not the dreamer. And the dreamer soon will wake. And when she wakes up, she's sexualized all of a sudden. She has boobies. And when she touches them, she kind of gets aroused. That day at school, there's a new boy at school. He looked older than the other boys, too old to be there. All he did was read comics all day and stare at Mickey. So Mickey says, what are you staring at? Why are you staring at me? And he says, my name is Akio. I'm a huge fan. And he shows her the manga that she stars in. So at one point, she looks at his comics, his pile of comics, and looks through that manga. And it looks like someone drew extra pages, kind of perverted pages, and taped them into the manga. So thus making it part of the world. And it's really horrible stuff. Women tortured, women and girls being torn apart. So Miki figured this out. She worked out what was going on. And now she's confronting Akio. So she says basically, take me instead of Alice. It was stupid to think I could escape my fate. This is how the story goes. This is, Akio basically created me. So Alice breaks free on her own. But then Akio grabs Miki and Alice says, do something. Where's her backpack? And all the dreamers, those giant worms, the tentacles, they start piling up on Miki. But then Alice says, hey, fanboy, say hello to my fantasy. And she uses that gun that Miki used in the first 20 pages and attacks the dreamers. He says, now you've made them angry. So Alice takes the bag, Satchmo, and says, do your stuff, Satchmo. And he vomits up all of the comics. And so all of our heroes can now blow, into a comic and escape. Just by chance, a night girl. Is that her name? God damn it, I forgot already. You know what I'm talking about, the superhero. It comes right towards Sam. So now we have chapter 12, the Sea of Tranquility. And Sam gets to confront one of his childhood heroes. I would really like to read this actual comic. Let me see something real quick. Sorry, Lady Knight. That's her name. He kind of apologizes for how crappy his run on Lady Knight has been. He says, you've been rebooted and redesigned so many times there's hardly any of you, the original, left. She tells him there's a dark side to fantasy. Not all dreams are dreams of liberation, pleasure, or joy. Some are dreams of destruction, hatred, revenge. And he asks her, he says, so Lou Goldman, your creator, what did he want? What was his fantasy when he made this world real using the magic pen? And she says he wanted meaning, a pattern, destiny, escape from contingency, from a random godless universe. It is the dream of theology and myth, the dream of story. It's the greatest fantasy of all. Kind of tying art and religion together Because, you know, basically religion is just a bunch of stories that you kind of tie together. Because people need to feel like there's some order to this. It's scary, you know. In a godless universe, it's like, it's a scary idea. It's the universe I live in, but it is scary. It's just so random. So she says, the power of my starstone will send you anywhere you want to go. He says, send me back to my friends. And she says, I'll send you to the beginning. And here we see chapter 13, the beginning. The only chapter that doesn't have its own, you know, splash page. And it's very different than anything else in this book. We see it's like the dawn of time, of at least humanity. And they're in a cave, our three heroes. And it's almost like they're being initiated. And they all contribute to the wall painting art. They spit blood on around their hands to make these images. So now, chapter 14, we're back at that bookstore, the Paper Tree. They've all landed there, and there's another King of Mars there. He sees one as soon as he lands. Sam does. So Alice says, welcome to reality, Mickey, even though I'm not even sure what that word means anymore. So the owner of the bookshop, she says, where did you find this comic? I don't remember even putting these out. Alice says, oh, I just found it. She says, here, I want to show you something. My grandfather owned this bookstore until just a few months ago. He died. And I never even knew he was a cartoonist, but I found boxes and boxes of his comics. Just a few days ago, I found all these boxes. And my mother didn't even know he was a cartoonist. So Alice apologizes for losing all of Mickey's comics, even though she used it to rescue them. Of course, Mickey says, oh, it's heroic. Don't worry about it. And apparently Mickey sent Akio to the Jorna Jungle Princess comic world. And Alice says, Jorna will sort him out. She doesn't take shit from no man. So that's a pretty good revenge, having like Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, kick his ass, you know? So Mickey says, I guess I'll explore this new world, rebuild my collection. And Sam says, well, here's the first two in your collection, King of Mars and Queen of Venus. And then Mickey gives the magic pen to Sam. She says, this is the real one. And I think you'll know what to do with it. They say their goodbyes to Mickey. And she flies off with her Mickey boots. And now we see the epilogue. Now Sam says goodbye to Alice. He slips a note in her pocket. Later on, she sees it. And it says, Mickey was right. I do know what to do with it. Have fun. He gave the magic pen to her. Because, you know, she's the young cartoonist passing on the baton, I guess. As he's flying home to New Zealand, he sees Mickey flying outside the plane. She gives him the thumbs up. Back at home, that's a really nice panel. Back at home, he reunites with his family. And the next morning, for the first time, he's ready to tackle a blank piece of paper and write and draw his own comics again. And I love this, how we see him, you know, pick up a normal pen and just 2 white pages to duplicate the effect of him just going off into this great unknown. It's a very kind of a enigmatic ending. Maybe a second from now, he's going to say, shit, I still have the writer's block. I can't draw anything. But I have a feeling that whole journey he just went on, he's going to be okay. He doesn't need a magic pen. He just needs a good attitude. Extensive notes. A lot of interesting things in here. A lot of it's just the weird New Zealand slang he uses. I like that monster. And a little self-portrait and a little mini bio. and some great end papers of the other fantasy city. So that's it, guys. Sam Zabel and the Magic Pen by Dylan Horrocks. This is a really, I don't know, I just love this book. There's something about it. It's so, like, kind of innocent, even though it, like, has some, like, I guess what some people would say, you know, naughty stuff. It's definitely not all ages. But I just find it's so hopeful, but not in a sappy way or syrupy way. I don't know. It's just, I really like this book. And I fucking love the art. I love Dylan Horrocks' simple style. I could read it day after day. But hope you guys enjoyed looking at it. And I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.